As promised, I am making this update video on my method of rehabilitation for my 2 dehydrated orchids without using living moss. I'm also going to try something else to speed up my orchids' growth. Once these 2 orchids restore their leaves turgor, I need to make sure that they can start growing. But it's really hard for them to do so with undeveloped root systems and a lack of nutrients while sitting on these aquarium rocks. So I have an idea. What if instead of using moss, I try to get the orchid into a commensalism relationship with another living plant? And for this, I've decided to use some wheat and Canada green grass seeds, just to see what would happen if I simply threw a handful of these seeds on the stones, and so I did. Epiphytic orchids need nutrients in order to survive, grow, and reproduce. They can acquire their nutrition in different ways. Some are capable of taking in everything they need directly from the air around them. Others clean water, minerals, and nitrogen from decaying organic matter of their hosts. I grow this green grass and wheat normally for my cat as a hairball removal remedy, and he knows this. Wheat sprouts grow faster than grass, and it's very interesting to watch this whole process through the clear glass. In another type of symbiotic relationship, epiphytic orchid species rely on other organisms growing on the tree or another host, such as fungi, for nutritional benefits. Other sources of nutrition include waste products from insects, birds, and decomposing organic material from other plants. So by planting another plant inside the vase, I'm not risking competition for nutrients, but rather the complete opposite. Orchids show a symbiotic relationship with trees and other plants in which they get their nutrients from. This is a healthy relationship in which no harm is done to the trees or to other hosts. Such a type of symbiotic relationship is called commensalism. Commensalism is a term derived from the word commensal, which means eating at the same table. Orchids can share and actually need to share their habitat with other plants for exchange of microbiota, and other plants can provide orchids with decaying organic matter. This is why we have bark or moss as an orchid substrate in the first place. For the past 2 weeks, my orchids started growing very noticeably. The one with a pigmentation line extended its roots approximately 1 centimeter in length. Both central leaves grew significantly, considering that orchids are the slowest plants to grow in the world. The second orchid, with a smaller biomass, was not very lucky, but after losing its yellow leaf, it started growing a young middle leaf, and that is a really good sign. Grass and wheat are good symbiotic friends for my orchids, and they help them with growth. There is no soil in my vases, just clean rocks and water, nothing else. Where are my plants, including my orchids, getting their nutrients from? Besides, of course, sugar as a product of photosynthesis. I want to put a small drop of this water from my vase under a microscope. And just as I thought, my used to be clean water is now full of life. I can see so many microorganisms in just a single drop of water. Nematodes, ciliates, fungi, spores, and algae. I can see a large number of fast-moving ciliates. Ciliates are mainly ectosymbiotic and endosymbiotic species. They harbor and feed on bacteria or algae. Free-living freshwater nematodes have complex interactions with other protozoas and fungi and play an important role in key ecosystem processes like decomposition. So my used-to-be clean water is full of microscopic life now, which is responsible for decomposing organic matter and nitrogen fixation. But where are these protozoans, worms, and fungi coming from? My first guess would be with the seeds, of course. Seeds of grass and wheat can hold spores of these microorganisms. But the orchids themselves can share them with the surrounding. We know by now that velamen of aerial orchid roots can function absolutely on their own, because inside of that unique layer of cells holds all the microbiota needed for survival. The question is, can orchids actually be placed on a grass pillow instead of green moss? And can other green plants, including grass and wheat, replace living moss for orchid rehabilitation, at least temporarily? I think the answer will be yes. For orchid rehabilitation in a glass mini terrarium, we can use other natural fast-growing ground cover plants like grass or wheat for the benefit of higher humidity and exchange of microbiota. But over time, this wheat or grass will overgrow the slowly growing orchids, and the orchids will suffer from a lack of sunlight. And for that reason, I think it's time to plant them back into the pots and return them into their normal growing conditions. I'm going to plant them back in orchid substrate. It can be preserved moss or bark or any type of orchid mixed substrate, as long as I see that they're ready to grow and the signs of dehydration are gone. But I'm not fully confident with the underdeveloped root systems that my orchids will stay hydrated and not collapse. So for higher air humidity, I've decided to put them into my rehab aquarium for a few extra weeks and observe. Increasing daylight and temperature will definitely stimulate growth, and the aquarium walls will provide high humidity. This way I don't have to worry so much. I'm also going to finally remove this crooked flower spike because it seems like all the nutrients were taken out of it and there's no more need for it. I will sprinkle some organic biofertilizer on top of the substrate, and I hope it will help. Thank you so much for watching.